Welcome to A Case of the Mondays, a podcast by 3R Strategy where we talk about some of the most pressing issues facing HR professionals and business leaders. From fair treatment of employees to fostering transparency in the workplace, we'll explore how to create an environment where people don't just have to come to work, but want to. So, if you're feeling blue, tune in and join the conversation so you don't end up with a case of the Mondays.
Welcome to another episode of The Case of the Mondays, a podcast by 3R Strategy. My name is Ramesh Kaleem, your podcast host, and today we're discussing the 4-day work week. The concept of the 4-day work week has been getting a lot of attention recently, with more companies experimenting with this and having a lot of success with it. And the idea has been gaining a lot of momentum. And on the surface, I think for a lot of people, particularly employees, it sounds great. Who wouldn't want a 3-day weekend? But in reality, I think there are a lot of complexities with this in managing the 4-day work week. And today we're going to explore some of those and challenge some of those. And I'm delighted that today we have a guest from one of the companies that took part in the 4-day work week trial last year and have decided to continue with it. So Simon is the managing director of Tyler Grange, an environmental consultancy and a non-executive director at several companies. Welcome to the podcast, Simon.
Delighted.
So could you tell us a bit about your company, Tyler Grange, and why you decided to take part in the 4-day workweek trial?
Sure. Well, Tyler Grange is an environmental consultancy. We've got ecologists, landscape architects and arborists, tree surveyors. What we do is we enable development. We're a purpose-driven company. We believe in the importance of social mobility. I also sit on the all-party parliamentary committee for ESG, where we talk about social mobility. So we enable development. We enable development in a responsible way, looking after the environment and society to allow people to buy homes, travel around, all sorts of cool stuff. But yeah, we spend a lot of time doing surveys, writing reports, and doing battle with the planning system to help development to happen. In terms of the 4-day week trial, we're always looking for ways to become the best we can possibly be. We meet a lot of people. We do a lot of fairly wacky things to try and become the very best we can be. And one of the things we were very curious about for some time actually was changing working patterns, because the point is it isn't a 4-day week that's important. It is what is the best working pattern for your organization. It's got nothing to do with 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 3 days, whatever it might be. How many hours you do in a day is what is going to be the most successful way of working. And I did a podcast recently with a storyteller, a lady who flies all over the world, works for people like NASA, she works for the NHS, she works for massive organisations, telling stories. And I was listening to your podcast before we came on that you'd recently done with Ali Khan, talking about purpose and environment and flourishing and all this kind of stuff, which I'm personally quite fascinated into. It's a good pod, enjoyed it. So Claire Murphy, the storyteller, gave me this great story, which I think is really relevant to things like working patterns and 4-day weeks and this flourishing and these kinds of things. So it's a fairly short story, so forgive me. But it's about a guru hundreds of years ago who was running a monastery. And every morning him and his disciples would meditate. And there was a cat that was messing around and distracting everybody. So what he did was he tied the cat up to stop it distracting them. And then he did this every morning before practice so that they could all meditate properly. And then after a while, sadly, the guru passed away. And a new guru came in to run the monastery. And he before practice tied the cat up. And then they were all able to meditate. And then after a while, the cat passed away. So this guru thought, oh, better go and get another cat. So he goes and finds another cat, ties that up before they meditate. Hundreds of years pass, and there's a big conference. And they all come together to discuss the philosophical meaning of tying up a cat and why it's really important for meditation. But the fact was, they were just doing it because it was distracting them. And in the end, it turned into a tradition. And I think this is incredibly relevant to this working practice. Because right now, we're working a 5-day week, 9 to 5. Generally, that's sort of common practice. We do it just because we've always done it. And nobody questions it. You start doing it when you're 4, when you go to school, and you carry on till you retire. It's been happening for 100 years. In the 1920s, Henry Ford created the 5-day week because we used to do a 6-day week in the 1920s. And he did some research around productivity and realized that actually he would be able to make more cars. He was a very vicious industrialist. He wasn't doing it for well-being, even though he said he was. But he wasn't. And he created the 5-day week, the 6-day week. And the interesting thing is when you go and look at the press and and all of the commentary that was around at that time was exactly the same stuff. Oh, 5-day, we all do 6-day week. We've got to stay doing that. It's really important. Our clients expect us to do a 6-day week. If we don't do a 6-day week, we're going to lose lots of money. It isn't going to work. But now we all do a 5-day week because Henry Ford proved it. Everyone started copying him and it became standardized across the whole world. And I think that what we're looking at now is, it's a 4-day week, but it's not. That's not the point. It is, I think people are starting to realize that it is, why are you doing a 5-day week? Is it a guru's camp? Are you doing it just because you've always done it? And have you ever really questioned why? And what are the reasons that you're doing it? Because it might be the right thing. 5-day week may be right, but it probably isn't.
No, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. But if we think about that analogy of doing things and in that particular way, just because it's tradition, isn't whether it's, and I guess you did mention this briefly, so whether it's a 5-day week or a 4-day week, it's still prescribing a certain way of working, isn't it? So who's to say that in 100 years' time, somebody won't be looking at this and saying, oh, why did we do 4-day week? Why don't we do shorter hours and work over 5 days instead?
Well, Henry Ford said the same thing because he said, well, I actually think a 4-day week would be better, but it's a bit extreme for us to go from 6 to 4. And he fully intended to start a 4-day week. I mean, one of the reasons he did it was to create a really nice period of time, a weekend, Saturday and Sunday weekend for people to go and have picnics and things. And one of the reasons he did that was because they would buy a car so they could go and become tourists. And it was one of the starts, the early start of the tourism industry, and people were buying his little black cars to go and use their extra time for recreation. And he made a lot of money out of it. So I think the 4-day week is clickbait. I've been Tyler Grange, my business, myself, and some of the other guys at Tyler Grange. We've been all over the world talking about this. We've been on New Zealand, Australia, and India. I've been in Dubai, Estonia recently, Canada, the States, talking about the 4-day week. People are really interested in it. And the thing, I think you touched on it. Wouldn't it be great to have a 3-day weekend? But the interesting thing was when Tyler Grange, so one of the pieces of advice I would give to people, by the way, is do not just switch on a 4-day week. For goodness sake, don't. It won't work. What you should do is talk to your team and work out with them what they think about it and how it might work and what might be the best way of working. Because one of the things we found, to my surprise actually, was all of our very best people didn't want to do it. Were very worried about it. Because the deal is with a 4-day week, and this was across the trial with the advice we got working. We worked with Cambridge University, Oxford University, Boston University, and we also I think there was around 72 companies on the trial. I think 98% of the organisations that have tried this have kept it because it works. You become more productive, and you actually do more in less time. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's just a fact. Can't do anything about the facts. All of these companies did it, and our employees were told you have to you get paid 100% of your pay. So there's no cut in pay. You get paid the same for 4 days as you did for 5. You get 80% of the time. So there's 20% of the time taken off. And that took lots of forms. So like the Atom Bank, for example, that were on the trial, they did split shifts. So they had 2 sets of 4-day weeks, so that they could cover weekends and things, so that there was cover for being open all of the time because they're always on. We shut down on Fridays. Some companies shut down on Mondays. Some people did 5 days but reduced hours. There's so many ways you can do it. It's not just a Friday off long weekend, although a lot of people do that. But the deal was you get 100% of your pay for 80% of your time, but you have to produce 100% of the stuff. The productivity has to be maintained. So that's the deal for the employees, for the organisation as well. But for the employees, it's got to be really clear about that. And that really freaks out the people who are working hard and performing really well, because they're thinking, I'm already working blooming hard to do what I'm doing now. How the heck am I going to do that in 4 days rather than 5? And the conversations we had around that were excellent, really challenging, really tried to work out ways that we could get better. And the wonderful thing about a 4-day week and talking to your employees about it is they want it, yeah, but they really need to know about how to do it. But you give them the power to work out how to do it. You don't tell them how to do it. They know better than you do. And then you create a environment which is massively rewarding, because they're getting a whole day every week off extra for their weekend. We call it a non-working day rather than a holiday, by the way. So it's still a Tyler Grange day, but you just don't have to work. So we like that psychology that it isn't just your day. The reason we do that is because of our purpose. We've always volunteered, and one of the things you have to do if you work at Tyler Grange is you have to volunteer for community organisations or charities. We also include working parents in that, by the way. We think raising the next generation is a wonderful thing to do. So they had to find ways themselves to create that productivity. And the reward is so powerful that you can drive the most significant amount of change. I started my first startup, a long time ago, almost 30 years ago. I sold that a long time ago as well. I've been involved in loads of different organisations. I've never seen the power of a 4-day week and anything else that allows you to change for the better, so that you can drive change into an organisation for people to be able to tolerate that. There's no other way of doing it, in my opinion. You want to get better, change working hours.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One, I guess, people have different understanding of 4-day work week. So I've spoken to organizations that, for example, have used compressed hours into a 4-day week, right? So if it's 40 hours a week that you're doing, instead of 8 hours a day, it's 10 hours a day over 4 days instead.
That's not a 4-day week.
Yeah. And there are other organizations that have done, for example, a 20% cut in pay. You do 4 days. And again, that's part-time working. That's not really a 4-day week. No. So I know you mentioned how it worked in the trial and what you did, which was the 4-day week, so in your case, you've done Monday to Thursday, same pay. But can you tell us a bit about how everything else works? So, for example, what is your holiday entitlement? And how did that change over a 4-day week?
Great question, because I thought it was really simple. As in, it's just be 4/5 of your pay, because I'm, maths. But actually, it's really complicated because of bank holidays and things. So we settled on, and I don't know the number, forgive me. I'm not big on numbers of days of holiday. I can never remember it. But I think it's something like, we were on 28 days. We're now on something like 20 days plus bank holidays. The surprise bank holidays is one of the worst things that has ever happened to our organisations. So with all the things like the Queen, all the extra bank holidays that went on, that was absolute carnage, because we went to a 3-day week. So what we did was we made Fridays and Mondays optional on those weeks so that people could work. We had the office open and support around for people so they could choose to work if they wanted to. But what we're going to be doing now is we're just going to flip the week. So if there's a bank holiday Monday, we will be working on a Friday, and that is with the full support and happiness of our team. They want to do that because it's absolutely horrendous trying to do a 3-day week. It's just stressful. Don't like it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, to answer your question about the holidays, it's complicated and it depends on what you do now, how you give holidays now. You need some advice on that. We had a lot of legal conversations to make sure we got it right, and then lots of consultation with the team to make sure they understood. And in the end, we settled on a number and said that's the number.
Okay.
But you're getting 52 extra days, aren't you? So it wasn't a hard conversation.
And what about, did you have any part-time workers? So people who were doing 2 days a week and shifting from 2 out of 5 days to 2 out of 4? How did you manage the part-time workers?
So we didn't have any 2 out of 5. We had some 3 and some 4 days. Actually, it was we have a lot of working parents. So especially mums, a few dads, but generally working mums doing 4-day weeks. And they were one of the reasons why we really went for it. Because when we're talking to them about what they were doing, what we noticed was, and I bet this is true, anyone listening to this who's running an organisation, go and speak to your working mums and have a really good look at how much work they're doing. Because I will be amazed if they're not doing more than the people on 5 days. I'm pretty confident, because we noticed this, that they were doing more work in 4 days than our 5-day employees were, on average. There were obviously some outliers, but on average that was happening. So that was really comforting, and we learned a lot from them about how to deliver a 4-day week and what the sort of things we could do that would work. So what we did with them is we just gave everybody a pay rise. So the 4-day week, they got a 20% pay rise. If they were on 3 days, then they got a whatever that is, a 40% pay rise, isn't it?
Okay, so essentially, if somebody was working
20%
4 days
pay
a
rise.
if somebody was working 4 days a week, and because the office shifted to a 4-day work week, you changed the salary to a full-time equivalent salary. There was no shift in their hours.
No, that wouldn't be a 4-day week, would it?
No, as in that's what it is, right? So if you're working 4 out of 5 days, you have 80% of your salary as a part-time worker, so you increase it to 100%.
Correct. So yeah, we did the equivalent with everybody else who was on other part-time arrangements. So Tyler Grange has got just under 100 employees in it. So we're not massive, but significant enough that I think people can take some reassurance. And we work in development with house builders and engineers, those kinds of people. Friday deadlines are a big deal. So closing the business on a Friday was pretty frightening.
Okay. I'm sure you get a lot of questions from people asking about the 4-day work week. There's probably opposing views. I have to say I am undecided about this one. I am a little bit skeptical.
Sure.
But
you're not on your own.
Yeah. So we're a small organization. We have a team of soon to be 9. So 9 people, and
Nice.
We are fully remote. And people are based different parts of the country. We meet up once a quarter for the whole day for meetings and some sort of activity. We have a lot of flexibility in how we work. So we have no fixed holiday entitlement. So people take time whenever they want. Obviously, and it's the philosophy around we treat people like adults and they behave like adults. So it's not.
Cool.
Sometimes people say, well, what do you mean unlimited holiday? Can I take 6 months off? Well, no, you can't take 6 months off. That's not how it works. But people manage their own time. We've also had people that have worked abroad, for example, because people can work from anywhere. So there is a lot of flexibility in how people work. And if I look at the 4-day work week, it's like the conversation that you said that you had with some of your people, which is that if the expectation is that you're going to work 80% of the time to deliver the same amount of work, then it means that productivity should be increasing by 20% of the time, by 20%, sorry. And so there's no doubt that for some people, that will mean that they will need to work a bit extra. And so my question is, have you tracked or have you looked at any data around how much or how long people were working when it was 5 days a week versus how long they're working when it's 4 days a week? And is it, for example, similar hours? They're just working extra hours during the day.
Yeah, I think it's a change in mindset. So you're looking at outcomes, aren't you? I mean, it's not about the amount of work being done. I think this is the trick, or the fact, is it's not about the amount of work you're doing. It's about how many outcomes are you achieving. What are you actually getting done, and how are you doing that? So we looked at the sort of work that we were doing that was taking a lot of time, and we found ways of either moving that out of the business, especially stuff that was low value. So we're using other people to do that kind of work. We're focusing on high value, difficult work, really challenging stuff. We do really difficult things. Well, what the 4-day week allows us to do is do really hard things amazingly well. Another podcast with a guy called Mustafa Saka, who's a professor of psychology, associate professor. Sorry, he told me off for calling him a professor. He's an associate professor of psychology at Nottingham Trent. He's pretty well known around the resilience thing, and I think that's what you're touching on here, which is, are people going to be burned out? And it is hard doing a 4-day week. You actually have the intensity of the work is much harder. So yes, we definitely have looked at how much time people are spending around out. So we do monitor hours. We're an hours-based business, a little bit like lawyers in terms of sometimes we charge on the clock. So, which is weird, isn't it, doing a 4-day week? But what we're trying to do is give our clients what they want, which is our advice, not data gathering or writing reams of text nobody ever reads. Really streamlining what we're doing, making sure it's done really effectively so that we're getting the outcome our clients want more quickly, so that we're producing the outcomes, not just churning through the work the same way we used to do it. So if you don't change what you're doing, it isn't going to work. And the point about something like this, as Henry Ford has said in the past, it's about changing what you do, not about doing less of the same. If you do that, you're just going to do 20% less. But Tyler Grange is now 29% more productive overall. So we're doing 9% more of successful outcomes than we were as a 5-day week company in 4 days. So we are 9% better. Plus, you take the 20% of time that we've lost by switching off Fridays, we're 29% better. And that is replicated across the trial. I mean, there are much bigger improvements and ones where it's fairly equitable and somewhere it's just a little bit down. But overall, I think I don't know of an organization that's had a reduction of productivity of a full day off. It works. But I go back to my point, and your skepticism is absolutely correct. I agree with you. Be skeptical, but then do a 4-day week. Work out what's going to work best for you. It's interesting what you say about unlimited holidays. We used to do that, and we turned it off because nobody ever went on holiday. What we discovered was that psychologically people like permission. If you're working with your friends at work, I think it's a little easier when there's 9 of you. But as we got bigger, we found it really hard, especially with people that weren't in regular touch with the founders, was they were finding it very hard to take holiday because they didn't feel they had permission to take holiday. So in the end, we went back to a very generous holiday allowance so that they had the permission to have holiday, because we want them to have holidays, otherwise they'll burn out. But one of the things we did is we developed an app, a mini survey, which monitors. We got a BA pilot called Kev, and my son, who is a computer scientist, built us an app that is like a mini survey that measures fatigue mainly and also happiness. So we've got an in-house psychologist called Suzanne who does a day a month in our business, running a clinic and also doing training. We have a very strong mentoring program at Tyler Grange, and she trains our mentors. So she helps us as well. So we've got some questions in there that we ask, and that monitors how tired people are, and also happiness as well, so that I can see every day, by the hour actually, changes in happiness and tiredness in Tyler Grange. Because this app's being filled in, everybody has to fill it in every day. I don't actually. I try, but I sometimes forget. But it gives us quite a good picture of how tired the team is and whether they're actually getting burned out or not. And actually, fatigue's gone down, happiness has gone up, which is pretty satisfying. But then we get peaks. So the bank holidays I mentioned is a great example of that, where it's really awful. Or if we've got a particularly big project, we'll work at the weekend. But we've always done that. But I mean, sometimes you just got to get stuff done, haven't you? So you've got to get stuff done, and we'll just work. We've always done that. So there's no real difference in terms of the intensity of work. It is more intense to do a 4-day week, but the extra day off means you come in, and this is, I promise you, is true. I would say almost everybody at Tyler Grange enjoys Monday morning, because you've had 3 days off and you're actually really quite keen to get on. I'd go back to your previous podcast about the sense of purpose and being part of something bigger than you. I think people want to go to work. They want to work. They want to work hard as well. And a 4-day week is not about having a day off. It's about being really damn good at what you do and having the space to be able to work on yourself, do things you enjoy as well as work, and then really be able to smash it when you're in your work hours.
Yeah, no, I agree on obviously our podcast is called The Case of the Mondays. And the reason it's called that is, so I wrote a book called The Case of the Mondays because is around, that whole point around, that's what people want, is that sense of purpose and that environment where you trust each other. And so I would argue that that's the critical piece there, is that real sense of purpose. And for some people, 2 days might be more than enough or great to say, I want to get back to that sense of purpose. I've had my time off. I want to get back to it. And whether it's a case of, prescribing a way of working rather than saying, do what works best for you.
Yeah, sure. So Tyler Grange does a 4-day week, but there is a lot of flexibility around that. We don't. We're an in-office organisation, but we're in office when you want to be in the office. We have 6 offices around the country. They're generally very busy on Mondays and Thursdays, but our team want to go into the office. They're sociable. They want to meet each other. Fridays is interesting as well, because the guys socialise with each other because all their mates are at work. And they're like, so they tend to go off and do stuff together. Fridays are used as admin days as well. We reckon it takes 3 to 6 months for you to get the hang of it, because you're so conditioned to work in 5 days. It's such a cat, such a guru's cat. You just can't. It blows your mind. I really struggled to start with. I have learned to switch off a bit. I do my best. Being the kind of person I've got a really good mindfulness coach called Mia, who really helps me with this, because it's a real work on for me, is being able to take time out and look after myself and not just be drive all the time, because as I've learned, that's not a very successful approach. It doesn't work. You're much better if you do have some time and space to be able to do other things, and then you can be really amazing when you are switched on and going for it. That's for me the key, and it's a work on for me anyway. But yeah, the flexibility thing, work when you want to work. Let's be outcome based. I get it. But again, I go back to the holiday point. I think people need some structure. I mean, one of the things we've learned from Suzanne, our psychologist, is the importance of structure. We're very much free and easy. In fact, you should speak to Mustafa. He's brilliant on this stuff. And he maintains that there is no reason for anybody to live in a relentless environment. We should be providing lots of support. But if you want to be really high performance, really amazing at what you do, really deliver the best stuff for your clients, and really achieve that sense of purpose that people want, then you put tons of challenge in. Like at Tyler Grange, we have a lot of challenge, but we also put tons of support in. And I think in the past, we've been great on the support and pretty poor on the challenge. We've been very much, we'll treat you like adults, like you say, you crack on, you do what you got to do. But as your organization gets bigger, that can become very frightening. People actually get really worried because they don't know if they're doing well or not. And they tend to get told they're doing well even when they're possibly not. It's quite a scary place to exist. So loads of support, loads of feedback, loads of help around the challenge. You end up with a very high performing team. And I think the 4-day week is just one of the things we do. It isn't the only thing we do. We provide a lot of flexibility, a lot of trust to our team, but they have to deliver.
So just on that point around the holidays, and I completely agree. And there is a lot of research that was because Netflix were the original ones that came out with that, and there was research around people not taking a lot of holiday.
Virgin, actually, Richard Branson did it first at Virgin.
Oh, did he? Okay. We didn't used to track holidays, but we've now started to track it just to make sure that people are taking it. So we don't.
How do you find that?
So we're finding that people are taking holidays, and so the reason I wanted to track it is to see if somebody isn't taking holidays to make sure that they are taking it. And so I think it might be a case of it works in a smaller organization, and it might be more difficult to manage in a larger one. But I think there's also a difference in when you talk about the issue of treating people like adults, where in some organizations you can have a holiday policy of 25 days, 30 days, and you might say, I've got a dentist appointment this morning, I've got to take half day off. In other organizations where you have that sort of flexibility, they, just do what you need to do and manage your own time. And so I don't think it's always a fair comparison because you have the flexibility to be able to manage your time rather than saying, oh, actually, I've taken a week off and that's the only time you're measuring.
I completely agree with you, and this is the point, isn't it? It's not about a one-size-fits-all approach to running a company. You've got to be better than that. And I think I go back to the Guru's cat story. I don't think enough leaders are asking themselves the question, what is the best working pattern for my organization? They're just doing a 5-day week. I was talking to Deloitte. I hope they don't mind me saying this. I was talking to them and they were saying, we could never do a 4-day week because our clients wouldn't let us. I'm like, well, have you ever asked them? How do you know that? And they don't. There's a lot of assumptions here. There's a lot of, and I think in most frames, leadership, we all know that we have to break the norms, don't we? We've got to do new things. We've got to challenge and disrupt and be creating new stuff for our businesses to succeed. Why is it so hard for leaders to look at a working pattern and say, actually, we have to stay with a 5-day week when there are loads of other ways of working? Why are you so wedded to that? I mean, the East Cambridgeshire example is a brilliant one. Cambridgeshire Council have moved to a 4-day week. Unbelievably successful, like really successful. They've been able to fill jobs that have been vacant for years. They've started to really deliver on some projects that they haven't been able to do for years. Satisfaction across the county is up, across their district is up massively. They are absolutely smashing it. However, the government are telling them to stop. Why? and nobody can say why. But I know why. It's because they're being lazy, and people are paying them to turn up for 5 days. And is there any leader out there that thinks presenteeism is a good thing? I hope not, because if you think presenteeism is a good thing, you have no place leading any kind of organisation, in my opinion. What you want is outcomes, don't you? So East Cambridgeshire have moved to a 4-day week. The outcome from their move to a 4-day week is significant. really big improvements in service to their district. But the government want to stop because of the guru's cap, because they've got a religious, frankly, belief in turning up to work for 5 days, 9 to 5. It's pretty silly, I think. But I'm not saying that the 4-day week is right or wrong. I'm not saying the 5-day week is right or wrong. The point is, you are doing it because you've always done it, and that is very dangerous. And if you don't think about it and don't come up with some new strategies, you're probably not going to exist as an organisation for many more years, in my opinion.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think presenteeism is very much something a lot of leaders care about, because that's why we're seeing so many of them saying we want everyone back in the office 5 days a week. And Goldman Sachs is a classic example. I don't care if they're listening to it because I'm not a fan. But they're the ones that are saying we want you to come into the office 5 days a week. And so it is very much around, we're paying you to do a job. We want you to, when I first set up the company around 6-7 years ago, it was very difficult for me to get projects, because we would have all the conversation, and then an organization would say, well, okay, so which days are you going to be coming into the office? And I said, well, I'm not coming into the office. You want this delivered, and I will deliver this for you. And that would lead to the end of the conversation, because they want you there. I think some of that mindset has changed now in the pandemic, but there are still a lot of companies that want that. And so for those ones, that are asking for people to come into the office 5 days a week, I think they're long, long way away from considering the 4-day week.
It's changing, mate. It really is. I mean, we went and spoke. So before we started the trial, before we told anybody about it, we went and spoke to our top 100 clients face to face, pretty much all of them face to face. Went to see them and said, "What do you think?" They all said, "Oh, I'm not sure. That's frightening. We're a bit worried about it. What are we going to do if we need you on a Friday?" We said, "It's okay. We've got an emergency line on Friday, by the way. So there's an emergency phone line that I go on it. All of the senior leadership, they have a morning or an afternoon once every I think we do it about once every 2 months. I've been doing, we've nearly 2 years now. We've been doing a 4-day week. I've been called twice. One of those calls was someone trying to sell me some furniture. So we're not getting many people phoning the emergency line. It does say only call us if you need to. Don't wait till Monday or phone us on a Thursday if it's about just general day-to-day stuff. So we don't get phoned. Out of those 100 clients, only one of those 100 clients said, "I'm not using it. If you do that, that's the end. We won't be using it." That client that said that now uses us again, because they went somewhere else and we were loads better than them. So they came back, and they still don't like it. But we're honest and open. One of our values is honesty. We're very honest about what we will do. But all of our clients are saying to us, and this is one of the things that our team changed, not us. We knew we'd need to do it, but the team really got on it, is comms. Being a consultancy, talking to our clients is a big thing for us. But in order to make sure that the clients don't need you on a Friday, the level and the quality, not the volume, not the amount, but the quality of communication Monday to Thursday is dramatically better. We are talking to and consulting with our clients dramatically better than we were as a 5-day week company. And that's because we have to, or they're going to phone up the helpline on a Friday, and everyone's going to go, "Oh, I want to go play golf or something. I don't want to have to talk to your client because you didn't talk to them properly over the 4 days." So it's been that's been really, really cool. But I think the honesty thing is really important with a 4-day week. You've got to engage with your community really, really strongly. Make sure they understand what you will and won't do. Once they understand it, our experience is it's very old fashioned, the development industry. A lot of them still go into the office in a suit and tie. It's pretty old school, so they were pretty alarmed by a 4-day week. We still get quite a bit of Mickey taking, bit woke, isn't it? I don't know what that word means, but it's all that kind of stuff. But we just smile and go, well, you're still using us. We're doing amazing stuff here.
Yeah.
You're getting outcomes that you're not going to get from our competitors. So it's pretty cool, isn't it? And actually, we're starting to see some of our clients are now starting to look at 4-day week. We're helping them. We help quite a lot of other organisations because we're generous like that. Talk to them about how we might be able to help them with our experience. And I know the exact second that I wanted Tyler Grange to do a 4-day week. I know exactly when it was. It was about a year before we did it. We've been talking about it quite a bit. And I had a dream. And I had a dream that one of my big competitors had done it first. And I woke up and I was so pissed off. I was so annoyed. Because what I realised was that if you go first, you're going to get all the downsides. Yeah, you're the early adopter. You're going to have to work out a lot of the problems. You're going to have to fight against everybody else who's still doing a 5-day week, but it is changing. It will change. But you get all of the upsides. So we can recruit pretty much whoever we want. They want to come and work for us because they're going to get paid the same as they are now, but for 4 days. Why wouldn't you want to do that? That works. We've got a much happier team. It's much easier for us to manage a team. I'm a big believer in working very hard on making sure your employees are happy. Why would you want to run a business where people are sad or you're having to hit them all the time to work hard? Make them happy. Then they're just going to deliver and you don't have to do a lot. It's much more fun. It's a much nicer place to be. So that's another reason for doing a 4-day week. It's just so cool. And you get all of these benefits. But if you're the last person to do it or you go in the middle, you're still going to have quite a lot of the downsides, maybe a few less, but you're going to have a lot less of the upside.
Did your competitor end up doing the 4-day work week?
No, that was just a dream. They're not that innovative. But I get quite a bit of flack because they're getting so much stick from their employees going, look at Tyler Grange, can we do that? We need to do that. We need to do that. And they're frightened. And I get it because so was I. The first month we did the 4-day week, we saw a big drop in productivity. It was terrifying. I was thinking I had made a huge mistake. Fortunately, it very rapidly changed into something really quite spectacular. So, yeah.
What do you think changed in that 1 month that
it's just so hard
productivity up?
To change? I think it's psychological. So it's just really, really challenging to go from 5 to 4 days. It's just, and I think we were just still a bit wedded to the way we were working. We did so in the run up to the 5-day week. We made Fridays optional, so we started to slowly turn off Fridays. In fact, one of the things I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, if you drive anywhere on a Friday morning, it's desolate. Nobody is around. But you try and drive someone on a Friday afternoon, it's carnage because everybody is working from home or they're just getting some things done and then they're off. And I think most people now, Fridays are pretty optional. So I think there's a lot of 4-day weeks happening. It's just nobody's been that honest about it.
Yeah, I think Friday has for a long time been a work from home day, or those people that were doing 4 days a week were taking the Friday off, because I used to commute from London to Reading every day for a couple of years. And I remember driving in on the Friday and it used to take me half the time.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But it's really, really quite a stark change now. Friday mornings is a great place. It's a great time to be driving around. I mean, our whole business, we all laugh about this at work because we're often doing stuff on Friday mornings, going and having fun. It's quite interesting because we're out and about on a Friday morning and everybody else is hiding at home.
Yeah. Did you ever think about, or do you know of other organizations that have done this where you considered having the 4-day week, but with half your employees doing Monday to Thursday and the others doing Tuesday to Friday, so that you had the full week covered for your clients?
Lots. Yeah, so Atom Bank's the biggest one that have done that. There's loads of different ways you can chop it up, but the key thing is 180-100. That's the formula to take away from this is 100% of your pay for 80% of your time, but you got to deliver 100% productivity. And I think it's that contract you make with your employees that's so important. That's really, really key, I think. Plus, very early consultation. We were talking to the team about it 2 years before we did it. In fact, we were talking to the team 18 months before we did it because we were going to do it after 2 years, but the trial turned up, so we thought, well, we might as well just go and join that. So we went 6 months earlier than we were planning. But
Okay.
there were a few, and I won't name any, but there were a few organisations that started a 4-day week with no consultation, and they had parties in their offices where they got everybody in and said, "Hooray, we're going to do a 4-day week. It's going to be amazing." And it didn't work. Those are the organisations where it hasn't worked, where they did things like that, because that must have been, knowing what I know now, that must have been terrifying for a significant number of their employees.
Yeah, of course. And I think in general, employees want to be part of the process. They don't want to be just told that this is how you should be working.
Yeah, and they're the best people to tell you how to do stuff like this and what will work. We had a whole structure we were gonna do, which we didn't in the end. We were gonna do we were gonna have Fridays off. I think then we were gonna have Mondays off, so we did Tuesday to Friday, and then we were gonna try. My preference actually was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday. So I was thinking 2 days weekend, 2 days weekend. That sounds fun. But we did Fridays, but it's worked so well. Been so good that we thought, well, I don't want to change that. It's been so powerful that we've just stuck with what we're doing, and the guys are enjoying it so much, and it's working so well.
Earlier on, you mentioned that your productivity went up by 29%. How do you measure that productivity?
So that is work completed per employee. So because obviously there's different numbers of employees month to month, with people coming in and out. So it's that, and we also measure work complete as well. So how many projects by value are completed. So it's really it's like a turnover by person productivity measure, really. So we do it in 2 ways just to make sure one isn't lying, if you see what I mean. So it's a real. I mean, we don't measure product profitability or profit for this. We do measure that, but we don't use that as a 4-day week measure, because it's actually, we're, like I say, we're a purpose-driven business. We tend to spend a lot of our profits on other stuff. We make beer. We spend money on a lot of charitable things. We support our guys doing their community stuff. We do all sorts of things like that. So our profit isn't a very good measure, because we have more of it, we spend it. If you see what I mean. Plus, we spend quite a bit of money on systems and stuff to help us with our productivity. But yeah, productivity is up significantly and definitively up, by that measure.
But when you say work completed, is that client work? Because I guess the client work and the billable time and all of that is quite easy to measure, whereas it's harder to measure non-client work. So is that mainly client work that you're thinking about when you talk about the 29%?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because our business is focused around delivering our clients' projects. All of the other stuff we do around that is feeding into that. So we tried a few different ways of doing it. So we tried looking at our admin team, the hub as we call them, who are doing all the support stuff around that, so accounts and sort of help supporting the team with any number of administrative tasks, all that kind of stuff. So we started looking at that, but actually when it came down to it, the best way to measure them was their impact on taking stuff off our team so that they were able to be even more productive in their 4 days, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's what we ended up settling on anyway. It's not it's quite hard. It's not perfect, but it is definitive because it's so big.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because it is quite a big shift. But we also work with our clients, and so that is a big part of how you measure your growth, your success. But it's very difficult to, because all things don't remain equal. So if it's do you think some of that or a lot of it could be down to you having a very successful year, so there's more clients coming in and so you're able to deliver on them, maybe, and I'll challenge you here, maybe it could be partly down to being in that trial where your company got a lot of, you know, um, marketing and PR as part of this to say, let's go and work with this organization. They're innovative. They're trying something different. And so that can be part of some of that growth and that productivity.
Yeah, my dream, be an early adopter. It's much more successful to do it that way.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a complex world, isn't it? I mean, we're trying to simplify things down into data and statistics. We're definitely more productive. Definitely. There's no doubt about it. How could we do that on 4 days instead of 5 if we weren't? So we must be. Yeah. So there's that. But also, yeah, we're innovating all the time. I mean, I think one of the things that we've done that has been massively beneficial is work really hard on our team's ability to cope with high intensity work. So we've got an in-house psychologist, who I've mentioned. We work with Mindful Peak Performance, who I'm a non-exec for. They so Luke Doherty, who runs that, they work with young carers. There are 800,000 children under the age of 18 and full-time caring for an adult. So he works with them and mindfulness, but he also, in order to pay for that, he works for business leaders. So he comes into the organization, helps us with mindfulness. The 4-day week is part of that. We have trained mentors. All of our team have a thing called a dream catcher. So we're helping them identify what they want to do with their lives, not just with their careers. And then we support that. And often that takes them out of Tyler Grange and into new jobs and new organizations and traveling abroad and all sorts of wonderful things. We want our team to have the best possible experience they can have at Tyler Grange while they're at Tyler Grange. And in order to achieve that, one of the things we've learned is that they're very, very likely to stay at Tyler Grange for a period of time, not forever. And we want to understand what it is they want to do next, help them to do that. So we've helped people become teachers. We've helped people move to Australia. We've helped them do all sorts of things, leaving Tyler Grange, so that we're giving them a brilliant experience while they're in our organisation. And that I think has massively improved productivity.
So one of the questions, and I was leaving this to as the end because we're talking a lot about support and the positive aspects. But one of the things that a lot of HR professionals struggle with is performance management. And we've seen a lot of research around organizations feeling that their performance management process isn't working. They don't feel it helps in any way with productivity or performance, and the employees feel the same way. So when you go from working 5 days a week and saying, we want you to be able to have the same productivity, you'll have the same pay, but you're working fewer hours. And I know you don't have to go into specifics, but did that lead to any challenges around performance for some people that were unable to cope with the reduction in hours but the same productivity? And how did you manage that?
Yes, of course. I mean, some people, it's not right for everybody. I think you touched on this about, and I agree with you. It's not a one size fits all thing. Some people don't want to do a 4-day week at that intensity. Some people want to cruise along for a longer period of time, produce the same stuff, but they'd rather have a bit more space to do that and take their time a bit. And that's not going to work at Tyler Grange. You've got to be able to maintain a fairly high intensity of work, and that isn't for everybody. But in terms of performance management, I mean, one of the things we've learned is being really honest and clear about what is expected of people. Suzanne, the psychologist, she uses an escape analogy. I don't know if you've come across this. I think it's used in HR a bit, but setting expectation, having scrutiny. So escape, the ESC part of it is expectation, scrutiny, and consequence. So the expectation, this is what we want you to achieve. This is how we're going to scrutinize it with your help. And these are the consequences of achieving those expectations, which is, if you achieve it, it's pay rises, promotions, rewards. If you don't achieve it, it is support and help to help you achieve it, but ultimately helping you to move to somewhere where you are going to feel like you're able to achieve, because it's not with us. So it's about a really honest, clear management of that process to allow people to really clearly understand. And we were really bad at that some years ago, really bad at it. We had expectations. We didn't tell anyone because we didn't want to freak them out or upset them. We were trying to be nice and say, you do what you got to do and we'll let you do it. And then we would end up moving people on at quite short notice. And everybody was a bit frightened because they didn't really know what was expected, but they knew that there was consequence. But they didn't understand the process by which those consequences were affected. So what we've done now is we've got a thing called a C3PO, which is all about consequences and expectations. So the C is a challenge, the 3 Ps are purpose, performance and pay, and then the O is opportunity, which is another one of our values. What opportunities can you create for the business and what can we do for you? So we manage that process. It's all about setting really clear expectations. They know they're going to get monitored. They know they're going to be measured against those, so they can see really clearly whether they're successful or not. And that way they feel safe. They feel really supported because if they're not achieving their expectations, we try and help them as hard as we possibly can to get there. And we don't set ridiculous expectations either. The expectations are set with them. We also have a very transparent pay structure as well, which I think you would like. Everybody knows what everybody's paid. We will be in the future, I hope, publishing that, which is going to really annoy my competitors, which I love. But so, yeah, we've a lot of transparency, honesty, a lot of clarity around those kinds of things. And I think that's really important, again, to make something like a 4-day week succeed. People got to know what they got to do in order to be able to hit that 100. You've got to be very clear. And if you're not, and if it's muddied and blurred, you're going to struggle.
Well, thanks a lot for all of your insights into the 4-day working week. I think I found this fascinating. It's been a topic that we've been discussing internally. I know a lot of HR people are discussing it, and I'm sure this is going to be a very popular episode. If I try and summarize what you have been saying and tell me if this is an accurate reflection, it's the focus isn't whether you're working 5 days a week or 4 days a week. It's more around having the right way of working for your organization. And if you are going to switch to a 4-day week, then you can't just simply do what you're doing now and just go to a 4-day week. You have to really look at how you're working, because it's not just about people becoming 20% more efficient with their time, but we have to look at all the inefficiencies that exist in our organization and try and cut out those inefficiencies to help people be more productive with their 4 days and their time.
Great summary. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad I didn't misunderstand anything.
That's cool. I mean, it's a guru's cat.
Yeah. So thanks again to Simon Ursell for discussing the 4-day working week, how that works, and all the benefit that we can have from this. I will say I was skeptical at the start of the episode. I am still skeptical.
Good.
And I think one of the things, but I am definitely shifted a bit in this direction. But one of the things I am skeptical about is I think we need more data, because for a lot of people, if you said we have, we're going to trial this for 6 months and then we can continue if it works and you'll have a 3-day weekend. I can imagine a lot of people working longer hours on those 4 days to try and make it work to get those 3-day weekend.
That happens for sure. Compressing hours, and just, a lot of lying going on. But can I just flip that on its head? You want data about the 4-day week.
So to respond, just if you could respond to this as well, and whether this is going to have a long-term impact on health and well-being of people as a result of those intensity and extra hours on those 4 days.
So I would flip the 4-day week on its head, and I would say to you, give me the data that the 5-day week is better than a 4-day. Can you prove that to me? And if you can't, then you've got to go to your organization and work out what's going to work best. Because you don't have to do a 4-day week. You don't have to do a 5-day week. You don't have to do any kind of week. But if you haven't asked that question, I think you're going to go bust eventually. Or you're certainly not going to achieve your full potential. Put it that way. Less controversial statement.
If anyone's I hope many people are listening and want to connect with Simon, to connect with him on LinkedIn. We tend to have a reflections episode after every topic, and we take questions from our listeners. And so I'm sure we'll have lots of questions and comments on this. And if there's something specifically for you, we might pass it on and to get your input for our reflections episode.
Cool. I know that there are going to be people listening to this now, and they are going to say this exact phrase. That'll work for you, but it won't work in my organisation. Pretty much everybody says that to me, and it is not true.
So thanks everyone for listening to another episode of The Case of the Monday. Thanks again, Simon, for all of your insights, and we will speak to you in next month's episode of Case of the Mondays. Thanks everyone.